Welcome back, everyone, to 3 Levels Deep. I am Alex. I have been away for a couple of episodes, I feel like, but...
You were there last episode.
Was I seriously there last episode?
You weren't there for like the 5 previous to that, but last episode you were.
Okay, cool.
It's been a while since the last one.
In fairness.
Our upload schedule has been impacted.
Yeah.
So I'm Alex, and then we've got Matt.
Hello.
Santo.
How you doing?
That's it. No 4th guest today, but that's okay. So we've got an episode covering some games that we've been playing lately, maybe some news items, and I actually finished a game for once.
Yeah.
I actually beat the final boss.
Yeah. You talked in the last podcast a little bit about how you've had to go to one-handed gaming because of baby.
Yeah.
So slower paced games for you.
Yeah, potentially. And actually, so I guess I'll just get right into the game that I've been playing recently that I beat, which was Sea of Stars, which is an old school RPG, kind of inspired by a lot of SNES era classics like Chrono Trigger and
Super Mario RPG.
Super Mario RPG. I would say it actually also takes a little bit of inspiration from some of the later Paper Mario games as well, a little bit. Just in kind of the combat system.
Well, Super Mario RPG had timed hits.
Yeah,
which is more what I meant.
Well, the way that some of the timed hits work are more similar to Paper Mario, because there's like a hold a button and charge up, or like hit a button repeatedly kind of stuff, which I don't think Super Mario RPG had.
The special moves had that. Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been so long since I played Super Mario RPG. I don't remember it as well.
Hey, if you want to spend $80, you can play it again.
Oh, $80. What?
I'll probably be picking it up with a voucher.
For the remake.
Yeah.
Right. I forgot about the remake, but yeah.
And actually those timed hits in the remake, they actually do damage to surrounding enemies now as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I saw that. So anyway, yeah, Sea of Stars, it's a very SNES era inspired RPG, but I would say that at least aesthetically, it takes a lot of sort of techniques for kind of making it a little bit more modern pixel art. And also the sound design is definitely, don't get me wrong, it's definitely like chiptune kind of SNES era-ish inspired, but the soundtrack does have a lot of... It's not literally restricted to that sound palette, and there's a lot of effects that are more modern effects that modify sound, and actually I noticed that there's some rhythmic techniques that they use that are really current kind of techniques with kind of changing the rhythm and things to kind of reinforce a mood that is somewhat not quite upbeat, or I don't know, it's hard to describe, and I'm not really a music theorist, so I don't have the right words, but just some interesting techniques there. Yeah, but
they got the Chrono Trigger composer, Yasunori Mitsuda.
Yeah, they got the actual composer.
So
how was Chrono Trigger?
Yeah, you mentioned there's a decent blend of modern and old styles, but how was the music overall?
Yeah, overall I really liked the music actually. I thought the music was very good and a strong point. And there was a lot of different music for pretty much every environment, and pretty much, I don't know if every boss had a unique theme, but it was pretty close to it, which is great because honestly, the game's not super long, and so I think it's maybe 20 hours ish, which for an RPG is quite short actually.
By modern standards, yeah.
Yeah. But
PS1 forward standards, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, like a lot of the areas are actually really, really short. Like there's dungeons that you could maybe beat in like, I mean, it feels like 30 minutes to an hour for some of these dungeons because they're so short. And so even with that short length, they went and spent the effort to make like unique music, not just for the dungeon itself, but for some of those bosses. And there's some bosses that you might face more than once, especially with the side quest stuff. And so I think there's a couple of boss themes that are reused there, but it's like, is that really reusing a boss theme? It's the same boss, you're just fighting them again. So
yeah,
like I think that
doesn't count.
That doesn't really count in my eyes, and it still is like a unique boss theme, I would say. So yeah, they really put the effort into the music. The music's really well done, and it's a great mixture of new and old. I think it's a really good example of trying to match the feel of those older games without literally restricting yourself to the limited technical limitations that they had. So, and we've talked about that like many times as sort of a, as a creative kind of way to generate creativity. In this case, like I really do think that they were using it for just to match kind of that nostalgic way we remember those games. Because if you actually limit yourself, then you're really, sometimes the limits are just bad. So. I
mean, it's the difference between being a composer and being a sound engineer at that point. For if you go back far enough, like the crazy techniques. This was mostly on the NES though, to create some of the best tracks on that system, or just like, okay, well, you only got like 4 channels and they can't all do the same things. So if you want to make something that sounds like it has more than 4 instruments, you have to like mix like going like chopping between 2 different kinds of sounds on one of the channels and crap like that. But maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in another episode, because I do want to talk about a couple of those old composers and some of their old soundtracks at some point.
But yeah, overall, and the sound effects are great too. Like the sound effects, like really.
That's crucial, I think, for a game with timed hits.
Game with timed hits,
sound effects have to be really, really nice.
Yeah, and actually, like I mean, we'll get into that
Pavlovian effect of just like hit button, hit button. Hit
we'll get into the timed hits when I talk a bit more about the battle system. But yeah, the sound is essential for the timed hits to work well. And I think that they do a great job using sound to communicate how those timed hits need to be blocked and things like that, and just like the feedback. So yeah, they did a great job with the sound effects. And also, like, I think the sound effects are one area where it's a bit more obvious that they're going outside of the limitations of like those older games, because they do use kind of like modulation sound effects. Like to convey certain things. Like there's like one of my favorite moves in the game is, it's a special move that essentially it's like the Zelda Phantom Ganon like mini game where you hit a ball back and forth with the enemy, and that's kind of like, I don't know, I just really like that. I thought it was funny how like they have a couple of special moves that are literally that. And I actually really like that move because it's pretty powerful. And it kind of does this thing where as you get more hits, it goes faster, and then the screen starts to shake. And I think the sound effects actually start to like get a little bit of some kind of modulation. And it's just to like amp up that intensity, right? Which is great. Like that's a really cool thing to do with this move. As it's getting more difficult, you have the game just kind of like getting these visual and auditory effects to match the increased pace of the ability. So that's really cool. I like that. So yeah, the sound effects are good. They're like everything about the sound, like it feels like it it feels like how you remember those games kind of being, except it's way better than those games ever were.
Subjective.
Subjective. I don't know. I would have to go back and actually play Chrono Trigger.
I still prefer this, like, just how those old games sound, because they sound a little more lo-fi than newer stuff with orchestral soundtracks.
Oh yeah, and I mean it is nowhere close to being like an orchestral soundtrack or anything like that. It is,
or even like a lot of like new games that try to do old like retro sounds. I don't think a lot of them hit the mark, but it's good to hear that this one does.
I think this one does, and I really liked the sound. And then, yeah, kind of moving into the visuals, like the sound and then the visuals are both really, really on point. Like, the game is just beautiful.
Yeah, I got no qualms about the visuals of this game. This game's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff is, like, bespoke as well, which is really, really impressive.
Yeah, like, this honestly might be the most beautiful pixel art game that I've played. It's interesting because when I first saw the game and first started playing, I was like, okay, this is a pixel art game. And the thing is, I honestly didn't realize this until maybe about halfway through the game. But I think that there's a lot of stuff that's actually 3D rendered, but they have done such a good job at like taking these 3D renders and animations even and turning them into pixel art that you can't even, like, you almost wouldn't even know. I think the one that's the most obvious is that there are a few areas that have gears, and so like there's a door, so there's like a couple of dungeons that have doors, which are a big gear, and then the door like rotates out as if it's a geared mechanism, which is cool. But I can tell that that those animated gears are a 3D animation, which has been basically like kind of downsampled to look like a sprite work.
Yeah, I mean that's something that you don't see a lot, because a lot of 3D games render perspective format instead of orthogonal format.
Yeah,
or orthogonal, like, or perspective, like if you move like your character to the side, it'll look like, you know, that something up in the background will, like, you know, kind of shift a little bit as well, because, you know, your camera is not A to B, it's like A to B to moving sideways to the C, like, you know, vectors and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm explaining this really badly.
That's okay. Anyway, but I think what really, really blew me away is that there is a lot of art that, like, probably is actually hand-drawn pixel art, and yet the game has, like, as far as I can tell, a fully 3D environment that is used to render shadows and reflections and particle effects, like lit particle effects. Mm-hmm. And it is so seamlessly integrated with hand-drawn pixel art that you can literally have like a hand-drawn enemy sprite of a flying enemy that is casting a 3D shadow on the ground. And you can actually, there's this ability where you can kind of like change between day-night, and that changes the position of the sun in the sky, which changes the entire dynamically lit environment. So like, we're talking about like hand-drawn pixel art that has an associated 3D model with like with a real-time lighting system, which is just like, that is so extra. Like, they did not have to do that, but, or I don't know. Anyway, it looks great. I think they did a really good job with the visuals of the game.
Yeah, the little bit of I've seen, it does look beautiful.
Yeah, to the extent that it looks like 3D, if anything, it looks more like Mode 7 from like a SNES. No, okay.
It looks so much better than
It's
Mode
so
7.
much better.
Go back, that's one thing that, like, I think if you go back and listen to music, I think a lot of music holds up. If you go back and look at graphics, they do not hold up. Mode 7 looks like garbage.
Okay, that's it feels like Mode 7. But yeah. The only minor complaint I have about like kind of the visual stuff is that there are a couple of character sprites where I feel like they actually limited themselves to a SNES palette, or it seems like they did or something. Like it seems like they have a limited palette, and I just feel like maybe they made a bad choice or something on that. Because there's just like a couple of character sprites where I'm like, this little bit looks a bit off to me, but that's honestly
easier to animate if you use less colors.
Yeah,
probably.
Maybe. I'm not really sure why, but there's just a couple of character sprites where like the shading feels a bit flat in certain parts of the sprite on certain sprites. I don't know. Anyway, certain pieces of certain animations, just like parts of the sprite look a bit flat, but it's a very minor thing, and I think probably is like more of an aesthetic choice that I disagree with as opposed to anything else. But
well, yeah, and also like the characters have to move around all the environment, whereas static, background objects, like you can place them there and fiddle with the dynamic lighting to see how they look, but they're still going to be sitting there. They don't have to move around the entire game.
Yeah. And then just like the animations of a lot of these enemy sprites and like the character sprites and even the environment, just like the animations are really, really good. Like they're just smooth enough to be like high quality, but not so smooth that it looks unnatural.
I kind of wonder, like, maybe if they are like, if everything's 3D, maybe they did the animations like you can do with 3D animation, where it does look like very smooth, and just cut the frame rate.
For certain items, I definitely think they did that. Yeah. Like the aforementioned environmental gears, and I totally get that one's a bit more obvious, and I think it's just because as those angles change, like the sprite just looks a bit odd, because you can't do like if you're limited to sprite work, you can really only make 90-degree and 45-degree angles look really correct. Yeah. And so if you're doing an animation with arbitrary angles off this model, like there's no way you can make that look good if it's kind of, unless you're sticking to that like 45-degree. But like if it's a giant gear that takes up half the screen, you can't do that.
Yeah. Look at our podcast art for examples of how angles look bad in pixel art.
Yeah, the stairwell of our logo is there's a couple spots that. Oh, and then also the game actually has cutscenes that are just like fully animated, like cartoon style cutscenes, which is kind of interesting. There's not a lot of them. It usually comes up at important story beats.
So they got their inspiration from the PS1 version of Chrono Trigger, which had a bunch of added cutscenes by Akira Toriyama.
Okay.
That looked really sick.
Yeah.
And those were also in the DS version, I believe.
That man sure has an art style.
Yep.
Yeah, the cutscenes were good. I didn't really feel like they added a ton personally, but they were fine. I didn't dislike them.
Well,
there weren't very many of them, and they're pretty short.
I'm going to stop you from burying the lead here. I think you might have liked them more had you liked the game more overall. Maybe,
yeah. So that's like that's probably the best thing that I have to say about this game overall, is that the aesthetics of the game are near perfect for what they were going for. It is beautiful. It's a visual candy. It's audio candy. Like if you like that kind of old style, like chiptune-esque music, like it's a gorgeous game, and I can tell that the artists of this game, like they put their heart into it, and they spent a ton of effort making the game like just like exactly kind of the thing that a lot of people who have nostalgia for these games would have liked, but also in a way where I think probably anyone would appreciate the way the game looks and sounds. But when it comes to the gameplay, the gameplay just feels uninspired. Like
It's funny that that's the word you use because they clearly took from a bunch of old games.
Yeah,
but I guess maybe they don't do anything new.
They do nothing really new, and the gameplay is extremely straightforward, and it's just the gameplay is like, okay, so we'll talk about the battle system a bit here because obviously it's a JRPG, and so, you know, a lot of your time is spent in the battle system. And, like, to be clear, there's nothing bad about the battle system. Everything's, like, competently executed. And there's, like, many different kinds of things that you slowly unlock as the game progresses. Like there's, like, vulnerabilities to different types of damage. There's physical damage and there's magical damage. And physical damage comes in, like, blunt damage and like sharp damage, so like sword and hammer basically. And then there's the magic damage comes in I think 4 types. There's solar, lunar, poison or chemical or whatever. And then there's also like arcane, which is, I don't know what it doesn't really matter what it means. It's the purple one.
Yeah.
It's not like the game explains it anything more than that. And so all of these different damage types, there's, different enemies can be weak to different kinds of damage types. And then also the game has a lock system where a lot of special moves used by the enemies it'll come up with like 2 swords and like a sun and say like number 2. And that means in 2 turns, that enemy's going to use a special attack, but you can block it if you do 2 sword damage, like 2 slash damage and 1 solar damage to that enemy before that timer is up. And it's kind of interesting because the battle system is like kind of a mix between, like, there's fully asynchronous battle systems where every character has their own turn timer, and then there's like fully synchronous where like all of your party goes and then all of the enemies go. But this one's kind of interesting because your party is basically synchronous, but the enemies are asynchronous. So the enemies have individual move timers, basically, but your party basically kind of just all goes sequentially.
Right.
Which is sort of an interesting, I don't know. I can't think of a game I've played off the top of my head where that was the system before, but I don't play a ton of JRPGs, so I'm sure it's not totally novel, but it was...
Marvel's Midnight Suns does something half that, where normally it's synchronous v synchronous, but certain enemies will have like turn timers where if you play so many cards, then they'll take a turn.
Yeah. But that's fine. So there's also like a bunch of different special abilities, right? So all of your characters have their own mana bar, and they can use special abilities, which are usually magical abilities that do magic type damage, though they don't have to. There's also, obviously, healing abilities are also magic based. And then, in addition to the individual mana pools, there's a combo meter that can go up to like 3. And so every time you fill up every time you fill up the bar, you essentially get like a combo point, and then you can use combo abilities, which involve 2 characters, to do different like special moves that are more powerful and maybe have like other kinds of effects. Like they might, like there's a couple of, like there's one move that's like it can delay. Like there's a combo that can do delay on enemy turn timers, and so there's a lot of them also do AoE damage to every enemy instead for the combos. So the combos are pretty good. Then there's also an ultimate meter. And obviously these things unlock over the course of the game. You know, you don't have all of this to deal with right off the top. But then regular moves a little bit, but also combos and magic abilities all kind of like fill this ultimate meter. And then every character has their own ultimate. One weird missed opportunity is that the ultimates don't have timed hits at all, which seems like a massively wasted opportunity, because I would want the ultimates to have like a more interesting like maybe you have to do like, you know, multiple button types in
Rhythm
order.
game super. Rhythm game super.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, this game is begging for a rhythm game super, honestly, because the battle system feels like more like a rhythm game than a JRPG, to be honest. Because it's got timed hits, but also it's fundamentally very simple to decide what you need to do. Usually it's like, do I have an ultimate? Use an ultimate. Do I have combo? Well, do I want to use the combo I have like meter available for, or do I want to save up for a better combo? And once it hits 3, you have to use it because then you can't get any more combo points. Do I have MP? Then use a powerful magic attack. If I have none of those, then I just do an attack. And if you just follow that, you will basically win the game.
Yeah, and doing an attack fills up your MP.
And doing an attack fills up your MP, which I actually like. And then there's also this thing they call live mana, which basically when you do a regular attack, it spits out these little balls of mana that anyone can use. And the story calls it like using magic without magic. Basically, it increases damage, increases healing, and adds magic type damage to your basic attacks. Or actually, so it adds magic damage to your basic attacks, and then it also adds damage or increases healing of every attack. So you can use the live mana to increase damage on magic attacks and ultimates and combos. So that's fine. Like I actually think that's kind of like a nice system, because essentially like the only real decision I ever really was making in combat was, should I delay using this resource in case I have to break a combo? Like that was fundamentally the only decision I was ever really making that mattered, was should I save this resource in case a combo is going to come up? And like there's certain enemies, especially bosses, where you kind of know that you should be saving these resources to break their lock, because the bosses usually have a lock for their special moves that's like, it's like 8 different types of damage, or 8 different damage kind of
pips,
whatever.
whatever.
Yeah. So it would be like, you know, do like 3 lunar damage and 2 solar damage and 2 poison and one hammer or whatever to cancel this powerful boss move. And to be honest, like there were a couple bosses I never saw some of their special moves, because I literally was able to always prevent them from doing it.
See, that's, I think, the core of the problem from what I've watched of the battle system, is that it is actually quite involved. There's a lot of different things that you can do and a lot of different facets to the combat. But JRPG combat is often a battle of resources. And I think that mechanics that prevent the opponents from you doing things, like this is kind of the same problem I have with a lot of the Persona boss fights, that you're able to like hit their weaknesses and knock them down and stuff like that. Is like denying your opponents of resources just takes the danger away, and also the fact that you have so many different options on your side to like amplify your attacks, do more with your action economy, and also you can switch out what party members you're using at any time.
Yeah.
So
once you have enough party members, you can just switch party members out.
yeah, so like it's not even like
and it's a free action. It is a free action to switch party members, and I actually am not sure that it should be.
Yeah, so like doing that is like, okay, well, like any lock that you're presented with, you have the tools to get rid of it kind of whenever without penalty. Like
as long as especially once
like,
so there's
it's
one
really easy to do so.
There's actually only one character that has abilities to delay enemy actions, but once you get that character, that ability is incredibly overpowered.
Usually those kinds of effects and those kinds of battle systems don't work on bosses.
Yeah, no,
For good
works.
reason.
It works on bosses, and in fact, that character and then another late game character together have a combo that can add like 4 turns of delay, which is outrageous, and it's one of the reasons why like there's a late game side quest like secret boss that I completely destroyed. She did not get to use. There were multiple abilities she had that I didn't even see because I just understood how to use the action economy to deny the boss from actually using their special at all.
Jeez. Was there any boss fight where you felt like you were in danger?
I think actually it's interesting. I feel like I was probably most in danger in the middle of the game.
That's strange. Okay.
Which is strange. I know.
Usually it's either the beginning or the end.
Yeah, no. The beginning was very easy, and then the end game was very easy. But in the mid game, like there's a couple sections where there's one section where your party splits up and you have like different members individually, and so you don't have the abilities that you would need to do that kind of thing.
Okay, I'm right.
So that was one section where I had to use a lot of healing like all the time to make it through those sections and use a lot of items. And also like just there was a couple mid-game bosses that just felt like they were more threatening because they like did a lot of summons. And that was also like when there's just so many targets, like, you know, you just get hit more. But overall, like the game is very easy. Like the battle system, there's a lot to do in the battle system, but I fundamentally feel like if you just do the biggest damage move you have available at the time and heal when necessary, because by the way, you have so many healing options that you're pretty much like, unless you're very new to JRPGs, it's not a challenge at all. And I kind of understand why they did that, I think, because it actually, no, I don't understand. So here's something I'm a little confused about. I don't understand who their target market is for this game. Because
seeing the trailer, like, I kind of had the feeling like, okay, this game looks gorgeous and it's a JRPG, but I just got the inkling from the trailer like, this probably isn't going to play well. I don't know why. But I felt like they were leaning so heavily on the art that there's no way that this could also play well.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's the thing.
Plus, their only other game was a 2D action game.
Like,
which is in the same universe.
Like, I don't think it's so much like a failure of implementation. I think everything's implemented very well. But
it's a question of balance, then?
It's a question of balance, and I think design. I think the design of the system, it's got a lot of moving parts, but they don't interact with each other. Like, that's, I think, the core problem is like you've got all this stuff to do, but you can't put it together in interesting ways.
Okay, like, here's for example a question, like the extra mana that like goes onto the field. Like, does everything generate that?
No, only the basic attack generates that live mana.
Okay. There's a moving part then.
Yeah, so that's like
that's an interactive.
That's kind of an interaction, yeah, and it kind of interacts with the lock system in the sense that it's often useful to have at least one live mana on the field at all times because it can help you break a lock that shows up with a 1-turn countdown. Because sometimes like a special move will come up and you have to cancel it immediately on that turn, or the special move goes off. Unless you use the delay, which I abuse the hell out of.
Yeah, maybe they could have made it so that like, you know, you needed a bit more than just one piece of mana to get the extra effects or something like that. Like tiers of like, okay, you need this much to get this effect and this much to get that
actually,
effect.
that's something that I did notice is that although using so that you cap out at 3 live mana, but using extra doesn't give additional magic damage. It only gives like additional regular damage. So like if you have a lock with 2 suns and you do a basic sword attack with Zale, who is the solar fire guy, then using 1 live mana adds solar damage to his basic attack, but using 2 or 3 does not add extra solar damage. You'll do more like...
You do more damage, but you won't break the locks.
You'll do more damage, but you won't break additional solar locks, which actually felt like
That's
little...
fine.
I don't know. It means that there's not as much of a...
That's fine if it started at 0 additional.
It starts at 0.
Or I mean, like, the first level of it breaks the solar lock.
Yeah, first level breaks the solar lock.
Yeah, I think maybe it should have started at 0. Like it wouldn't unless you spend more. Because
Maybe.
Again, like, you have,
I don't know.
Like, from hearing it, you have so many resources at your disposal to control the flow that you can do it too efficiently, and then what's the challenge?
Yeah. Oh, one cool thing that I will mention, and again, this goes back to like the game's aesthetically really cool. They have interactions between the music and what's going on in the battle. So like the music will literally like skip beats when stuff happens.
Oh, okay.
Or like there will be like kind of like like some variant to the battle theme when like, you know, certain particular actions, like special moves and stuff happen. That's really cool. I love that. I love that they're like doing these little things. Again, though, like it doesn't change the core. It doesn't change how the battle system works. It makes it more like pleasant to look at and hear. Like I don't know. One of the biggest things that I think the game really could have used is status effects. I'm really surprised it doesn't have status effects.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like you have like this solar fire damage, but there's no burn. You have poison damage, but it just breaks poison locks. It doesn't actually cause an HP like.
And enemies don't status affect your characters?
No.
Okay, then, well,
No.
there we go.
Are there
that makes so much
like
sense.
stat buffs?
No,
No? Wow.
not really.
Huh.
So they basically like they put in all this interesting mechanics to the combat, and then stripped out a bunch of base JRPG mechanics from the combat.
I don't know why they
Yeah,
did
this
that.
just sounds like too simple for its own good.
Yeah, like I and that and then because of that you can't like I think that's also one of the reasons why there aren't like sort of interesting interactions. Like for example, there should totally be an interaction between status effects and types of magic damage. That should be a thing that should be in there, that you should be able to be manipulating to get extra damage, like to make you engage with like using different characters, different moves in order to like get a status effect that like is amplified by this other sort of type of damage. That would make a lot of sense to me as a mechanic you'd want, because it starts to make some of these systems interact with each other. I don't know. But yeah, no status effects. Super weird.
That's wild.
Yeah, and then enemies hit pretty hard actually, but you also have a lot of healing abilities. So I actually kind of like that at the core, because I don't know, in theory, well, okay, I like it in theory.
I don't.
Like
I've seen too many examples of that where it's just like easy access to full heals makes the game uninteresting.
Yeah, like you can, yeah, because you take a lot of damage, but you have a lot of healing options, and so you heal a lot. I would be fine with I would be fine with that in principle if it felt like I had to like trade off between doing damage and healing more often, but that was rarely the case. It usually just felt like, okay, it's time to heal. Oh, full party heal.
Yeah.
Because there's a character that can do a full party heal. There's items that can do full party heals that are like easy to get. You can just make as many of them as you want, basically, because there's a cooking system. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like actually, I want to talk about that a little bit, because I'm going to talk about it and then come back to the battle system. So this game has like a hilarious food focus and cooking system. Your third party member, which you get very early, is actually a warrior cook. So he cannot do magic damage at all. But like he's supposed to be like a support character, and he has like an incredibly strong healing. Like early on, he's like your main healer, I would say. And you pick up these items of food out in the environment, and there's tons of them. There's like there's like cabbage and wheat and tomatoes and bell peppers and ham and fish. Like in the fishing mini game, which is actually pretty nice, like pretty solid fishing mini game. It's not too hard, but I like it. It does everything a fishing mini game needs to do. And then you also get cooking ingredients from fishing, which is like, yeah, all right, I like it.
I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah.
So you and then there's fish and shrimp for different dishes, and there's probably like 30. There's probably like 30 odd different dishes you can cook, and basically all your items are these food dishes that you cook, and you can find them randomly as well. But for the most part, most of your items are going to be food that you cooked, and yeah, that's kind of, it's not often that a game makes me go like potatoes. I feel like Merry and Pippin sometimes.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
There's a max of 10 prepared foods, which encourages you to actually use the items, because otherwise you cannot pick up food that you find in the world. Which I like mechanics that make the player use their items, just because I am so bad for like, I'm going to save all these items forever.
Yep.
So any way you can make the player want to use the items, I am generally in favor of. So here's the thing, though. This is a huge missed opportunity for status effect items.
Yeah.
Like, your support character pretty much only has one thing to do for support, which is heal. He can't inflict status effects on the enemy. He can't buff your characters. All he does is heal. That's it. And
having some recipes that would cure ailments, or some like monstrosity dish that can inflict poison on enemies.
Yeah. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. There's even a spicy chili pepper, and you should totally be making a dish with the spicy pepper that like inflicts some status effect on enemies. That's just such an obvious thing to me. Like, that would be what I would...
Yeah, okay, if I was designing this game, I would create a status effect called Tasteless, where you're immune to food.
Oh. That would be interesting. Like, the game probably like needed to lean heavier into the cooking mechanic to make it kind of more interesting, I think, because they did a lot of work. And again, the weird thing, so much work went into the cooking system. Like, again, there's probably like 20 or 30 different kinds of ingredients. There's so many different ingredients. And then in the cooking menu, which you access at campfires, which are also your save points and rest points. So you're at a fire and you cook, and it's this like the cooking menu, and you hold down like your action button, and it plays a little animation of going through the different steps of preparing the dish. And every single dish has like kind of a different set of animations. Like there's like chopping vegetables, there's like boiling, there's like cooking in an oven, there's like preparing sushi. Like there's a bunch of different animations, and like different dishes, it'll play these different animations in different, like with different orders of them and different speeds sometimes. And it's like, it actually makes the process of just choosing which items to create visually interesting. And I'm like, you put so much work into this cooking menu. Like, I almost don't even understand why.
I mean, cooking is becoming the big thing in JRPGs.
Yeah, so like
Final Fantasy 15 had all of their weirdly high rendered food.
Yeah. So anyway, the cooking is like, I actually think it's cool, and they didn't go far enough, because the cooking should have been integrated into status effect and buff items for sure. Like it's like, it's one of these things where like, I'm just like, this is obvious. Like, this is what other games do with their cooking system. Like, you make an ailment cure, you make a poison thing that poisons enemies. I'm like, why are they missing such simple things? And I think it comes down to a design choice where I don't know who their target market is, because the game is easy, the game is straightforward and simple. It's incredible. It's one of the most linear games I've ever played. Paper Mario is more non-linear and more difficult than this game. And Paper Mario is a linear game that is not hard. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, let's talk about loot and equipment. It exists. And it's pretty much so linear, it feels completely irrelevant. Because the way it works is that you find incrementally better weapons for one single character and incrementally better armor that fits maybe 2 characters, and you just upgrade it and you just put it on every time you find it. If you actually find the optional chests that are hidden in the environment, you actually don't even need to buy armor, pretty much, because you will just find all the armor and weapons you need. Which feels... And then there's like some optional ring slots and so like accessory slots, and there's very, very few accessories. So you pretty much just find accessories and equip them because
they're there.
They're there.
No
and
reason
you
to
have
leave the slot
slots.
empty.
Like late game, you'll find some accessories that are just strictly better because it's like, oh, instead of +5 magic attack, it's +5 magic attack and +5 defense. So I'll just improve my accessory slot. Like, it's a very, very weak... It's such a weak equipment and loot system, it might as well not exist. Which I feel is very disappointing. Because I feel like that's one of the things that a JRPG is supposed to have, is like, you know, making some kind of decisions about your character's direction.
Yeah.
Like, what is this character specialize in?
Yeah, and make it so that like you have less options to specialize your characters, and being able to switch them anytime in the battle system means like, yeah, you don't make hard decisions. You just don't.
Yeah, there are no hard decisions in this game. Yeah, and then there's a bunch of ores and gems and stuff, and you pretty much just sell them for money, and they're all fungible. It's like, I don't even care at all. At first I was worried. I'm like, oh, am I going to use these ores to like craft stuff? Because the game's got a cooking system. Maybe it's got a crafting system too. No, it doesn't. The game also has relics, which change the game behavior in some ways. Virtually every relic just makes the game easier, which surprises me because the game is already easy. I was really surprised that there wasn't a relic to make the game more difficult. Like, just strictly more difficult, because the game honestly needs it. Like, actually, when I was playing Bug Fables, very early in the game, like before the first dungeon even, maybe, you get a badge to... It like doubles enemy damage and doubles XP gain or something like that. And so it's kind of like a trade-off thing to make the game more difficult. But it's not even really it feels like it just makes
higher reward.
Yeah, it feels like it just makes the game more difficult. Which is good actually, because, you know, again, that's also that's probably the most recent other JRPG I've played. And you know, it's also like you know, being a Paper Mario inspired game, fairly simple and straightforward. But
well, getting a little long in the tooth here, but I did want to ask about the writing in the game.
The writing,
how you felt about that?
The writing's good. It didn't blow me away, but it was competent. It was not like a Paper Mario where I'm like, oh man, you know, there's a lot of great jokes and it's like very funny. There were some jokes. They were competent. Like, the writing's, you know, kind of like lightly charming. It's probably above average, but it's not so far above average that I'm excited about it. So the game, the writing and story are just like, they're solid. Like, I think that I'm not, like, I don't know exactly how you would make it better. There's a couple moments where I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Like, you know, there are some party composition changes that are, I know, I won't spoil it too much, but yeah, like there's some moments in the story where I'm like, okay, yeah, that was pretty good. There's also there's also, I'm not gonna lie, there's also some things that I just like. I feel like they had a thing that they were trying to do, and then they just kind of, I don't know if wimped out is the wrong term, but there's one thing in particular. Okay, the game's very inspired by Chrono Trigger, and this, you get told about this pretty early, so I'm going to say that it's not a huge spoiler, but essentially there's like some branching timeline universe thing, right? And ultimately, there's a point in the story that is supposed to be basically similar to what's going on in Chrono Trigger, where like in Chrono Trigger, Lavos destroys the world and you have to go change the past.
Yeah.
Right? To kill him and save the world. And this game has a moment that's kind of like that, except in Chrono Trigger, you go and you can, and everybody loves this about Chrono Trigger, right? Like, you can go to Lavos and fucking die. And the future refused to change.
That's
like
the fucking game over screen for Chrono Trigger, and it's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love it. And this game had an opportunity to do that and then didn't. Which blows my fucking mind, because this is like very obviously heavily cribbing from Chrono Trigger in a lot of different things. In fact, there's boss fights where I'm like, yeah, this, like, literally the boss looks like Chrono Trigger. And like, it's very clearly inspired by Chrono Trigger. And for some reason, they didn't take an opportunity to do something very similar to that iconic moment. And I have no idea why they didn't do it. Because the story literally says that's basically what happened. And then, but they don't follow through on like showing it to you. Which
that's the problem.
That's the thing. Like I think that this game, they put in the effort where they could have made essentially like an iconic like JRPG that like stands the test of time, and instead they made something that is like it just looks like it's supposed to be one of those. I don't know, like it's an A aesthetically, and it's like a B or a C, like under the hood. So I don't know.
I just want to say, for a game called Sea of Stars, I'm surprised it doesn't take more after Star Ocean.
That's probably for the best.
I haven't actually played Star Ocean. There is a late game massive aesthetic switch, which is really cool. They even changed the UI menus, which is not something that I've seen before. I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I like this. But I have heard that it is exactly the same thing that happens in Star Ocean. So I don't know. But yeah, and then just some notes. Yeah, I said also like exploration. Yeah, the game's super linear, and another thing, I'm just gonna try and briefly blitz through this. Dungeons. At first, I was kind of hyped about the dungeons because it seemed like it had a lot of Zelda-inspired stuff in the dungeons, which I thought was cool. But fundamentally, the dungeons are incredibly linear. The puzzles are the most basic ass puzzles I've ever seen. It's got sliding block puzzles like Zelda does, but they're just like trivially easy. There's like there's a couple dungeons that have like the big chest, and you go and get the big chest and get a dungeon item that is a mobility item that you then use to traverse the dungeon, just like a Zelda game would. There's totally there is a water temple. There's a straight up water temple in this game with moving platforms that float and changing water levels, except it only goes up. The water level just always goes up. So it's not even a puzzle.
It's just progression.
It's just progression through like a linear dungeon. And I'm like, it's even got fish people that live under the lake in that dungeon, like a Zora kind of thing. So like, I don't know. It's so...
Game just feels like... Do you think the game has its own identity?
Not... like, I don't know.
Okay, if you have to say I don't know, then the answer is no.
The answer is no, yeah. I mean, it felt like, the game, it felt like, in terms of the underlying game, not like the aesthetics, it feels like they were just kind of trying to do everything. Like, there's a lot of things that are inspired by many, many different games, and they kind of put it all in a blender. And the core mechanics don't really always kind of seem to support each other, and it's I don't know if they entirely knew what they wanted to make. Aesthetically, it's pretty cohesive, like, and I would say aesthetically it's very much more like Chrono Trigger though, or another SNES era JRPG. It's like really kind of in that wheelhouse. It's not trying to make its own. It's not really trying to make its own visual identity so much as it's trying to update that SNES era JRPG visual identity, which actually looks great and I would be fine with. It's just, I don't know. I think it's like a game made by SNES era old school JRPG fans who really, really deeply cared, but then they were aiming it at like people that are like totally brand new to JRPGs and have never played a JRPG before and need something simple. That's the only thing I can like think about when they were like who is this game for? And I'm like, it's for someone new to video games who's never played a JRPG before.
All right.
And
also trying to hit the nostalgia factor.
While also trying to hit nostalgia for the SNES, which is like, I don't exactly know.
Have we hit like post nostalgia at this point where like making a pixel art game is just like not even for nostalgic purposes anymore? It's just an aesthetic choice that people like, something that is popular now. Like, I don't know, whatever.
I don't know. And like, I would be fine with that. And in fact, the environments are actually really quite unique. Like, there's like a mushroom forest and like cool dungeons with like graveyardy kind of skull themes and things like that. And there's like, the environments are really, really well detailed. And then some of them are like, they don't necessarily remind me of anything in particular that I've seen before. But again, it just goes back, like, yeah, the game is beautiful. The game, its aesthetics are incredible, but like the underlying game is just so basic and so simple.
All right. Well, have we exhausted the topic?
I think we need to move on. We've spent like an hour talking. I've spent like an hour talking about this game now.
Yeah, and
I don't hate it. Like, I finished it, but I don't know. It leaves me very unsatisfied because it could have been a lot more than it is.
All right, so we spent 1 hour talking about Alex's game, and Matt, you said you've played like 6 or 7 games.
All right, yeah. So I've got like 7 things to talk about, but I mean, some of them are going to be pretty quick.
Yeah,
just a few things to say on them. But so the first one I was actually playing at the time of our last recording, but I didn't want to talk about it until I finished it, and that was Cassette Beasts.
Oh yeah, this one looked pretty neat actually.
Yeah, it's, for lack of a better term, it's a Pokemon-like. It's a monster trainer. I don't know if there's a term for
like,
this
okay,
genre.
So when you get the beasts, I suppose, when you get the monsters, are you just like, is it straight level ups like Pokemon, or are you like doing things to raise individual stats and stuff like that?
So instead of levels, there's star rankings, and each beast, it goes from 1 to 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
And once they reach 5 stars, if they have another form after that, you can evolve them. But once they're at 5 stars, if like they're fully evolved, and at every time you would get another star level up, it doesn't go past 5 stars, but you'll get like a new random move from like stuff that they can learn. Because the way moves work in this game is on level up, you get a sticker for the move. Because, well, I guess I should go into the beast first.
Does the sticker go on your cassette?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Good.
But it's because you're not actually catching the beasts. You record them to a cassette.
What?
And then when you put the cassette in your Walkman, you yourself turn into the beast.
What the hell?
Okay.
So the overall level is the actual character's level.
Right.
And then like the star ranking is for the cassette, each beast. And then you put the stickers on them to give them different moves. And like you can have a bag full of stickers, but kind of like with TMs, not every beast is going to be able to have every type of sticker on it. There's ones that's not going to be able to learn.
Let's see trade-offs.
But it's also it's a double battle system. You've always got a partner with you, and they transform as well. So, but like you can just encounter like one enemy, or it'll be like a double battle. Sometimes it could be a bit like a larger swarm of enemies as well. But the part of what I really like is they do a really good job with the type chart.
Oh, yeah.
So where Pokemon's pretty simple. The interactions are just no effect, not very effective,
or
neutral, or
modifier.
super effective.
Yeah.
The way the type chart works in Cassette Beasts is a lot more intricate. So much so that they actually give you the type chart as a key item you can refer to, even in battle.
Mm-hmm.
So like you've got your just normal beast type, which like beast is just like neutral against everything. No problems there.
Normal type.
But where the real fun of this comes in is the actual interactions between different types. Because, so there's something called coatings. And under, like there's moves that can apply a coating and it'll change the type. But also the type interaction can apply a coating. So if you attack an ice type with a fire move, for 3 turns, they're going to have a water coating and be a water type.
Oh, cool.
This also works with a fire type attacking like a plastic type, and then it's a poison type for 3 turns.
Oh. Okay, that's kind of cool. So it's like dynamic types that can change.
But there's also more than just the typing. If say a wind type attacks an electric type, the electric type is now it's conductive, which means its moves will now hit multiple targets. Or if an earth type hits an electric type, now it's
Grounded.
Insulated.
Oh, okay.
Okay, can moves from your own team hit the other Cassette Beast on that team? So you can like
I don't
create
think
some of that
so.
stuff? Okay. No.
But when they're grounded, their moves are a lot harder to hit. Like it's hard for their moves to hit. But just like all these, and like there's glass type as well. And like if you apply glass coating to something, every time they get hit by a wind move, there's a resonance stack. If it hits 3 stacks, it's just instant death.
The glass shatters.
Yeah. And then there's glitter type.
Glitter?
If a glitter move hits something, it becomes glitter.
Oh my god.
The glitter just gets everywhere.
Okay,
Awesome.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, they obviously had a lot of fun designing the interaction system between the different types. There's a lot there. And I'm really glad that they actually give you a type chart you can refer to even in battle to see that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, even the newer Pokemon games like show you the
If they're effective or not,
the result of the type chart, basically.
Yeah, and you don't get to see the type chart, but yeah, you get to know. Like, if it's something you fought before and you know it's typing.
Am I thinking of this game or a different one where you can actually like fuse the beasts together?
Yeah, that's this, because there's a meter. When that meter's full, you and your partner can fuse together, and like it just creates some amalgamation of the two creatures that that you were. So there's a lot. I think it's like, because a DLC just came out for the game, and I think so. I'll probably be going back to it soon. But I think with the DLC, there's like maybe was it 1,400 or 14? I think it was like 1,400 or so, like fusion.
I mean, yeah, if you can fuse every beast with every other beast, there's going to be a lot.
And you can fuse two of the same as well. But there's also just some like fun designs for the beasts in this game. Like one of the first one you run into
that's N squared beasts
is called Traffic Crab.
Oh, Traffic Crab?
And it's a crab with a traffic cone on its back, and its face is a red light, like a red stoplight.
Wow.
Oh my god, that just reminds me of this. There's some mod that somebody made for, I think it was like, God, was it Gen 3 Pokemon? Anyway, it was like Pokemon too many types. And they added like some YouTuber
I think I saw some clips
commissions
of
the
this,
mod.
yeah.
And so there's a bunch of like just stupid types in there, like like literal meme types. But one of the types in it is crab.
Oh, crab type.
Crab type.
It's a good type.
And it was really funny because they interpreted it to be basically anything with like more than the normal number of limbs. So like Machamp is crab type. I was like, okay, that's pretty funny.
That's good. But
no crab type in Cassette Beasts?
No.
Just crabs.
Traffic Crab is plastic. But yeah, there's like other fun.
He could be plastic crab though.
Like there's a Fun Go, which is an artist mushroom. And I know I shared this one in our Discord. Gin and Tonic, a genie waiter.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay,
that's fantastic puns.
But yeah, so basically the premise of this game is, well, it's an isekai.
Yeah.
Basically, you find yourself washed up on shore of this island, and this island is the entire world as far as everyone on it can tell. And so what it seems to be is like people are washing up on this island from like different timelines. So like everyone inhabiting, like everyone's from different worlds. So like you hear like little snippets of like, oh, what that world was like, or that one. But yeah, and through that you also get like a couple different party members you can team up with. I think there's 6, I want to say, and one of them is a dog.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
But overall, you've got 3 primary objectives to go after. You've got the villain organization, which are vampire realtors.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
Because then you invite them in.
Yep.
Get into your house.
Brilliant.
You've got so part of this is you're trying to join the Rangers, which is part of the group that kind of protects the town that's settled there. And part of joining that is going around and battling the 12 different Ranger captains. So essentially your gym battles.
Yep.
And the last one is going after the Archangels.
This is just Pokemon Scarlet Violet. Gym leaders, evil organization, Titan Pokemon.
I mean, okay, but if you look, have you seen screenshots of this game?
Not really.
It looks like they ripped Pokemon sprites practically.
Yeah, like
so the Archangels are pretty much biblically accurate angels.
Nice.
Perfect.
They're hard because
they're hard to look at.
Each of them is in a different animation style. So when you think about from the perspective of the characters and like the style of that world, and you're looking at something in a completely different animation style, it's like it's jarring and hard to make sense of. And yeah, there's quite a few of those Archangels, and all of them have like a different style. There's one that's like a black and white, like kind of stop motion animation. There's one that's just a geometric shape, just like a pulsing cube.
Awesome. That's like
Evangelion.
I was gonna say, yeah, maybe some Evangelion.
Yeah.
Evangelion? I think it's Evangelion.
But,
I don't know. Then again, it's like evangelizing is how you pronounce that word. So like maybe it is Evangelion. We're not going to go down that road.
No.
Yeah, going back to the moves. So the stickers, you can actually get some of different rarities. So they'll actually have different effects on them that you can put on them. But there's also, the thing I like is there's passive stickers as well. So like one I was rolling with was... at the end of each turn, there's a chance of using the move after this for free. And like I'd put like some move that was just really high damaging, high cost, because moves cost action points, and each turn you gain 2 action points. But I mean, if you fuse though, you gain 4 per turn. But being able to use like a full bar of action point move for free just because it's like right under the list of that passive ability. So there's, I didn't play around with it too much, but there's definitely like some crazy builds you could get going with stuff there.
Cool. That sounds interesting, especially like the being able to like can you bank action points? Like, does it go above 2?
It goes up to 8.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. So like I had a move that cost 8 to use, and it would go off for free sometimes.
Kind of cool. You know what? Sometimes I think about like how stagnant the Pokemon series is, and then clearly people have ideas.
Yeah, and I also want to say this game's very much like it's very much got that feel for like us who grew up with Pokemon when it started, and it's going for more of a. Like, it's enjoyable for all, but it's going for more of an adult vibe. Like, if you grew up with Pokemon, like, way back, and you're growing up now, you'll probably enjoy this as well. Like, I would definitely... Of all the Pokemon games since switching to 3D, I'd definitely put this one... I would rank this below Scarlet and Violet, but above everything else.
Okay. Well, okay, in fairness, that's like a really hilarious bar because Scarlet and Violet is good with problems, and the rest of them, I think, are bad Pokemon games.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's... Yeah, no, it's fun. The only main issue I've really had with it is... I kind of stopped playing in the post-game because there's content in the post-game locked behind a very repetitive and not fun grind.
That sounds like a lot of post-game content, to be honest.
Hey, for some games, that's the in-game content. Until you get remade for the Wii U. Bam! It's a Wind Waker joke.
Oh, Triforce Quest.
Cool.
But yeah, no, Cassette Beasts.
Cool. Yeah,
pretty solid, fun game.
It looked kind of cool. I remember seeing some trailers for it. So.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to go back to it and check out the new DLC. I believe it's called Pure of the Unknown.
It's like the opposite of Sea of Stars, where it like took a inspiration material and then like made it more complicated instead of less.
Next up, I jumped in. I've actually put a lot of time into this over the last couple months. Not as much now, but like it's there, and I'm going back to it occasionally. And that's No Man's Sky.
I've heard that it's gotten a lot better after the like just continual support from the developers.
Like I think I counted it out. It's like 17, or no, it might be like over 20 like big named updates.
Yeah,
since it came out. They've definitely turned it around with like, so because like when I first started playing it, like I mean like the core of the game still remains the same. There's just more around it that you can do now. Mm-hmm. And before it launched, like you'd kind of just start traveling system to system, and I don't even think there was really a way to go back to like places you'd visited before. But eventually they added portals, so every space station in the habited systems had a portal on it, so you can use that portal to go back to any previously visited system. And then you've got the base building too, so you can say you find a planet you really like, you can set up a base there, put your own portal there. I named my base Alpha Site because I like Stargate. Like you can even get a freighter, which basically just a big ship, which is basically a mobile base that you can just call into systems. Yeah, they've really expanded on that game. And it's much better. And I've just been enjoying it as like just something I can just sit back and just kind of chill, play while I just have something on the side. If I'm just like watching something on the side.
Nice.
Yeah, they've turned it around quite a bit.
Watch some. What is that stupid game? Subway Surfers on the side. I don't understand.
Next up, I'm winging it with this. I have no notes for this. Armored Core 6.
There we go.
The latest game from Software. I've never played any of the old Armored Core games, but this one is fantastic. The amount of customization you can do with your mech.
I've seen some mechs going around.
Yeah, I've seen some licensed properties going around.
But yeah, no, fast-paced combat, like just high customizability. But the game also, it can be challenged. Well, I mean, it is pretty tough at times, but you can make it a bit easier on yourself if you actually conform to like a setup that will help against it. Because I think a problem some people were having early on is they were trying to stick to the build they had.
Yeah, but I mean that's something that sounds like great game design to me. It's like you have this incredibly in-depth, large amount of options for customization. Force the player to engage with it. Don't pigeonhole the player into one thing.
And there's no penalty for it too, because there's some parts that come up in the shop that you can buy, but then you can sell them back to the shop at cost.
Yeah.
So you can have like a bunch of stuff change it around, but if you die in mission, you can recustomize. So it's important to have stuff that could help on hand, because you're not going to be able to access the shop there. You're just going to be able to recustomize based on what you have to help you out.
I haven't played it, but one of the complaints I have heard is that there's apparently like kind of a fairly narrow set of builds that's like way better than basically everything else.
Yeah, I was guilty of using the double Zinnerman shotgun for a little bit myself. That build those shotguns are busted. They just got nerfed.
Yeah.
But apparently they were also dominating PvP.
Oh, there's PvP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, once you
that
get
changes things a little bit.
Once you get a little bit of a ways into the campaign, you unlock PvP.
Hey, double shotgun mech, that was also like one of the best things that you could do in Front Mission 3. So there's precedent.
Yeah. Well, just thinking about this whole force people to experiment because their build's not working. Well, at the same time, yeah, I think I haven't played this, but I have definitely seen it in some games where there's just one obvious build that crushes everything else, and then players don't experiment with other builds because there's only one build there's one build that makes the game substantially easier.
Yeah. So if this game is able to balance that, where
it
pushes you to experiment with new builds or forces you to get really good.
Yeah.
If those are the two paths, then that's good game design in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and we're talking about FromSoft, right? And so I heard the same thing about Elden Ring, where there's a couple of builds in Elden Ring that are apparently fairly straightforward and just completely dominate because it's basically a giant laser.
Yeah, that's what I used.
And I heard the same complaints there where people were like, oh yeah, this, it's easy to not engage with the game's like many build varieties because this one build is just so much better than pretty much anything else you could do, and it's a difficult game. So, I don't know. It's funny because is this just a problem FromSoft has?
Well, I mean, in other FromSoft games like Dark Souls, whatever, you can't respec.
Yeah.
Really.
It depends. Like Dark Souls 1, you can't respec, but like Elden Ring, you can get a good amount of the item in one run. You can get a good amount of the item you need to respec, but you have to get it far enough and be a specific boss before you can start respecking.
But like at the same time, I feel like this is just inherently a challenge for any game with lots of build variety, is that there's going to be powerful builds that are easy to use, and there's going to be powerful builds that require you to get good. And everyone's going to say that the powerful, easy to use build is busted just because a lot of people don't get good.
Well, I mean, that's...
Which, it's like,
That's a problem on the player side. Just like players, if you play games, don't look shit up all the time. Just try it yourself, damn it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I think a lot of games end up kind of with something like that when it comes to a lot of like agility-based builds, is that they can be super powerful, but they typically require more skill to make them work, because you actually need to like be more aware of movement and positioning, as opposed to like just like some tank build or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Like,
I think in Armored Core you can literally be a tank.
Yeah. Like for the end of Act 2 boss, that was the first time I ended up trying to go with a like high mobility build, because it's like, okay, I need to be able to get out of the range of these attacks. I need to move out of the path of them, and like that high mobility, like that ended up becoming like the first time I did that fight, when I beat it, like that became one of my favorite fights in the game. Like just at that point.
And I think that's like what Santa's talking about. Like if there's a boss where the obvious thing to do is like make an agility based build, that pushes the player to experiment in a good way and explore the options that they have. So that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's a boss at the end of the first mission of the second chapter, and so they've got this one little weak point on the front, but they've got these giant like rotating blades up front that just like will fuck you up. But they've also got a weak point like that you can get at from the top. So like you can try and fly around them and like shoot down there, and like that's what I did. I toughed it out with the build I had. It wasn't until after that I realized, if I had gone with a quad leg build, I could have just hovered, because the quad legs allow you to hover. I could have just hovered above that weak point and just shot in there easier, rather than just like flying around, just running out of thruster gauge faster. But actually, on a little side note, going back to Elden Ring, people have been importing the models of this game into Elden Ring.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And they are to scale.
Really?
There's a chapter 1, like a mobile, like this like big 6-legged walker that you board and get on to destroy. They poured it into Elden Ring, and it like runs like half the length of the map.
Wow.
And Elden Ring's a huge map. But yeah, no, everything in it is to scale. So.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, that was that game is a blast. And what's really cool is, so kind of like Souls, like they tend to have multiple endings, and so does this. But whereas in Souls games, you could say back up your save and save scum all the endings in one playthrough to save having to go through again. This you can't. Because there's also new missions on the second and third playthroughs.
Right.
So there's some mission, like in the first playthrough, you reach some places where there's a mission where you choose between two missions, and the other one is gone because you're making the choice. And then so then on the second playthrough, you can choose that other option, and then choose the other ending as well. But then getting both of those endings unlocks the third ending in the third playthrough. But on repeat, like some of those, like knowing what you're doing, some of those replays, like, they go real quick. Fantastic game. Basically all I have left is to S rank every mission. As you progress through, you do unlock these arena missions, which are simulations against other pilots, some of which you will actually fight in-game, but like the in-game versions are actually harder than the arena ones. And like going through these unlock you points that allow you to put in permanent upgrades on your mech. So like more weapon damage or manual aim if you're crazy. There's a bunch of different perks to choose from, and as you get through like the second playthrough, eventually you do get enough points to have everything unlocked. Up until that point though, like there is a refund system where you can spend some money to refund and reallocate the points. But moving on though, the next thing I played was Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways, which is
my favorite Journey song.
It is good. It is good. Which is it's a DLC for RE4, and it's based on the mode of the same name from the original, which was present in all versions starting with the PS2 release of the game, with the exception of the VR one.
Right.
And it's you're playing as Ada now, but from like you're seeing Ada's side of things, what's going on with her as Leon's going through his shit. It's pretty much the same gameplay. It is, but there's one big difference. Ada has a grapple gun, which is used for just some traversal through the environment. But like the big mechanical thing is, you can get an upgrade that allows her to grapple away the shields from enemies that are using shields, just make them vulnerable. So to my understanding, this game, this is significantly better than the original Separate Ways was. Like that was to my understanding, it's a very just like thrown together asset flip. Oh. And I mean, not to say that this is an asset flip too, because it reuses some areas and stuff, but it's actually really, it took me about just over 6 hours to get through, and
that's pretty significant.
And it only cost 12 Canadian, which isn't bad
that's
for
good.
a DLC.
That's pretty good for DLC.
That seems like
that's cheap for DLC.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like a fair price for DLC.
Which, especially when you compare it to Resident Evil 3 Remake, which took me just under 8 hours to beat, and at launch that was a full price game. And like I'd kind of argue there's more replayability here with this DLC than the RE3 Remake. But I think one big thing about this is so not all content, like there was some cut content from the original game that that was cut from the remake, but some of it actually ends up showing up in Ada's campaign here. And and they seem to be you actually see Wesker some more. They seem to be setting up some more stuff with him. Maybe 5 Remake. Although I think I'd like to I need to play Code Veronica, because it's like of all the Resident Evils, it's not a numbered one, but it's very significant to the plot, because that's the return of Wesker.
Was Wesker even in 5?
Yes.
I played and beat 5, and I don't even remember Wesker being in it.
But yeah, like the big thing that's keeping me from playing Code Veronica is all the versions available, tank controls only.
Oh.
I would like to see a remake of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a solid DLC for $12 Canadian, 10 US. I saw that price and I was like, wow, that's very reasonable. Mm-hmm. Next up, I played a little bit of Lies of P, which, if our listeners will recall, was my most anticipated game for 2023.
What did you do with that game?
I refunded it.
Yep.
Oh, that's brutal.
It crashed on me multiple times in the first 90 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty bad.
So unfortunately, I've had to refund it for now. I'll likely revisit it later.
All right.
Hopefully after things have been fixed. But for everyone who has been able to run it fine, it's been received pretty well. Like, it seems to be, of all the knockoff Souls-likes that aren't FromSoft, this one seems to be the most FromSoft.
As opposed to the knockoff Souls like that are from FromSoft.
But yeah, no, because and the crashing's weird because I played the demo a couple months back, and that was like about 5 hours, and I had no crashing issues in the demo. So just
very strange.
Something in the full release. I don't know.
Last minute optimization just screwed everything up, probably.
Yeah. Or maybe them adding de novo.
That could be it too.
Add de novo?
Yeah.
Okay, that very much could be it.
So, well, specifically the crash I'm getting, it's a low level. It's an Unreal Engine low level fatal error.
Well, doesn't de novo like interface like in a low level with the operating system or something?
Something. I don't know. It's intrusive, is all I know.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually played a game with de novo.
I know Sega loves to add de novo to all their games on Steam. Apparently that can like cause some issues because like when Project Diva came to Steam, because of de novo, it added stuttering issues in a rhythm game.
Nope.
Oh my god.
Absolutely not.
Oh.
But yeah, because I end up having to refund Liza P, I end up looking for something else to move on to, and that's Final Fantasy VII.
The original.
The original.
The original, okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah, because you played Remake like last
year.
It came out.
I really want to have a longer discussion about this at some point. Once we've played more of it.
Oh yeah, no, like I'm only like 12 hours in. Like
only.
I mean, I sympathize. I put some time into Final Fantasy VII, like OG Final Fantasy VII, and I honestly I'm not even sure if I got into like the real game yet.
Yeah, like I've specifically been playing the.
I don't think I have time to go back and actually play the full game.
Hey, you beat one JRPG.
Yeah, I've specifically been playing the PC Steam release of it.
The funniest announcement of all time. There was I forget what exactly it was, but it was in some press conference, and like it was a Square Enix presentation, and that like at the very end of it, they pop up something on the screen. It's like it's been like 15 years or however long it was since Final Fantasy VII originally released, and they start playing the song, and they cut to a 4:3 cropped version of the start screen for Final Fantasy VII, and all the announcement was the like original Final Fantasy VII was coming to Steam. This was before Remake was announced.
Yeah.
So everybody thought that they were like announcing Remake or something. This is like, nope, this is just the most like flat announcement you could possibly make.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not like one of those like cool announcements where they're doing a remake and they start with like the 4:3 low res, and then it like
expands
to
like,
widescreen,
wipes to
and then,
crazy new graphics. No, nothing like that.
Faded.
Like one weird thing about this version though is like for the time it came out, because it was like 2011, 12 or something like that, early 2010s. Like it doesn't have X input support.
Oh God, really?
Well, I mean, it's a Square Enix PC port. You can't expect much.
So my Xbox controller wasn't working, but you know what did work? My USB PS1 controllers from the PlayStation Classic.
There you go, playing it as intended.
Wow.
But yeah, no, like I'm enjoying it so far. Like, and like going back because I've played a bit of it before. Like I'm now past where I had gone on my original time playing it, but like going back to it now after having played Remake, like it really kind of makes me like the Remake's battle system more. Well, like not more than the original, but like it makes me appreciate it more in the fact that like they don't really it doesn't really change the core of it, because you've still got the ATB system. You're still waiting for the bar to charge, or in Remake's case, you can have multiple bars because some actions will require 2 bars. But it basically just gives you control of the character while you're waiting for your meter to charge. And you can just do basic like melee attacks, block, parry if you have the parry materia on. But like, I'm also really liking the original ATB system as well. It feels a lot more engaging than other RPGs, because you actually have to like pay attention to everything as the meters charge and like what's going on, and like I'm really enjoying it. And there's been like some moments that like I most of them with Barrett.
Yeah.
Like when you first leave Midgar and you're like prompted to split the party, and if you take both Tifa and Aerith with you, like as soon as you get out of the menu, the first thing Barrett says is, "I knew you'd do that."
Did you, when you were infiltrating the Shinra building, did you take the stairs?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Which is something I have to say. When you get to the remake, take the stairs.
Oh, I was going to. Like, come on.
The stairs, it's great in both versions. And remake,
nice.
like they do a really good job with the stairs. I really like it.
All right, cool.
But yeah, no, we'll definitely touch more on that once I've gotten through it some more, or finished it. And so there's one last game that I've been playing, which is currently a Japanese eShop exclusive.
Okay.
What? Okay.
I'm interested.
I had to go on Play Asia and buy a 1,000 yen points card for the eShop for my Japanese account to pick this up. It's only like, the game itself is only like 240 yen, and it's a very simple but addictive like puzzle game, and like a lot of people have been referring to it lately as Japan's hardest game. And basically the translation of the name is watermelon game.
Oh.
So here, I've got an image to show you guys, just so you can get an idea. Like, listeners at home, you can look up the game and just get an idea, but like, just gonna show them what it is.
Okay.
So basically the premise is you've got this box, and you've got these fruit you need to drop into the box. 2 of the same fruit will combine together into the next tier of fruit. So it goes like cherries to strawberries to grapes to, I believe it's grapefruit, to orange to apple to I think it's pear to peach to pineapple to cantaloupe to watermelon.
Yeah, but like, I'm looking at that screenshot and I'm assuming that it has like the circular physics going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Circles, the most efficient form of packing.
So basically,
no, that's hexagons.
So it's an endless style game.
Okay, it's Circular Fruit 2048.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, essentially.
Awesome.
And like you get a little preview of like what the next one, you'll kind of like in Tetris, you get a little preview of what the next one up will be to drop. But yeah, if you drop a piece and it's like too far above the top of the box, that's game over.
Yeah.
Or like sometimes the physics can kind of jostle stuff around and something will launch out and then that's game over. Yeah, so basically you just want to combine the fruit, get more points. It's very simple but addicting, and basically everyone playing it's kind of agreed that like, even though it's endless, beating it is getting to 3,000 points.
Okay.
Because it's like pretty tough to do, and like it's also like pretty tough to like just get 2 watermelons. Like I haven't even gone a watermelon. The highest I've gone to is the honeydew.
Is the watermelon the biggest fruit?
Yeah. But and then like that's a big thing because like then like as you saw like the bigger fruit, they take up more space in there. Like you could have 2 of the same big fruit, but they're like opposite sides. So it's like, how do I get them together to combine? But yeah, at the moment my current best is 2387.
Getting there.
But it's like, I don't know, like I clicked on a stream of this game and I watched it for like 5 minutes and I was like, yep, this looks really addicting, simple, and fun. I am now buying a Japanese eShop card.
This feels like it would be a mobile game, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it seems like exactly the kind of thing that would be perfect, like on a phone screen. You could just like tap where you want the fruit to drop.
Maybe it's part of the line. I'll get it.
But yeah.
All right. Watermelon ripoff game.
There is actually like a knockoff browser version. You don't get the preview of what's coming next though.
Oh. No, it's just hard mode.
Yep. But yeah, no, that's been like fun to just. It's a fun puzzle game.
The thing it reminds me most of is like those stupid like full physics Tetris games. Which like it's so difficult because the physics engine just like makes things move around in really dumb ways.
Yeah. And with that specifically, you just end up with all these little slivers of pieces.
Yeah.
After you clear lines, and it's just impossible.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for me for the last couple months.
All right.
Cool. We got through your 7 faster than I got through my 1.
Yep. And we're out of time.
Man.
Yeah, I've got some things, but they're not that important. I'll save them for next time. And we're on a bit of a clock here, so let's just wrap this thing up. If you listen to this and want to get in touch, you can email us at 3levelsdeep@outlook.com and check out our YouTube channel, which has also been sparse for uploads, but that will hopefully change soon.
Yep.
Got some project ideas that will take a very long time, but there are ideas in the works, people.
Also, Mediocre Monthlies. It's kind of missed 2 months here, but it's actually going to undergo a little bit of a change.
Yeah, we're rebranding.
Yeah.
We're so good at that at this channel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the ones we've uploaded so far are going to remain the same, but we're going with like a little bit of a different... I mean, the videos will mostly be the same when it comes to the fighting games, but we're kind of integrating them into another format.
Yeah, we're going to expand the boundaries a little bit for what could be in that series.
Exactly.
I mean, there's only so many mediocre fighting games you can play.
Well, no, the fighting games themselves are not mediocre. We're just mediocre at them.
I mean, sometimes the games themselves are also mediocre.
I don't think we played a mediocre game yet. I think we've played some good games and some bad games.
Are you gonna? Okay, yeah. I was gonna.
Speaking of Fight Crab 2.
Oh my god.
There's a second one? Oh, jeez. Better have Machamp.
Yep. Guest character Machamp. All right, so thanks for listening, and see you on the other side of Canadian Thanksgiving.
Gobble gobble.